Is church our family? Our families extend beyond our relatives. God chose to be born in a family. The Feast of Holy Family isn't just a celebration of the ideal family. It's also the time you remember that God chose to be born into a family with all its joys and challenges. Holy Family, JMJ family, Jesus, Joseph, and Mary. Jesus learned from parents and obeyed them. We knew from the gospel narratives he was lost in the temple, and the parents were trying to find him. When they found him, they were happy. As Jesus grew, his parents loved him and worried about him. The family of Messiah did not always find life easy. Imagine how difficult it was for Mary to keep vigil at the foot of the cross while he died. Our readings begin with a description of ideal families. The book of Sirach is part of the wisdom literature, which provides a proverbial advice for how to live our lives. Here the author says the children are to honor and respect their parents, both father and mother. The rewards are great for children who do so, even in the father's old age. Our families extend beyond blood relatives. The church is our family too. We are to treat one another with the same love and respect our own families deserve. Paul instructs in Colossians the characteristics we should have as a disciple and as brothers and sisters in Christ: compassion, kindness, humility. In addition, Paul places special emphasis on love, which is above all. As a final admonition, Paul also asks that we be grateful and give thanks for what God has given us. The last part of Paul's letter frequently causes consternation among both women and men. Paul was the first theologian of the church, but he was also a man of his time. Paul speaks of wives being subject to the husband and a husband loving their wives. He also says that slaves must obey their masters and masters treat slaves fairly. But in the modern world, we know there are some women make more money than their husbands. Today, the breadwinner doesn't matter, husband or the wife. It is they work together. Somebody said, marriage is 100%, but divorce is 50-50. Paul's mission was not to upset the status quo, but to make sure that husbands and masters do not abuse their power. Today, we acknowledge that slavery is immoral and marriage is seen more as partnership. But all of us are to treat each other as brothers and sisters in faith as God intended. Brothers and sisters, put on as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, heartfelt compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, bearing with one another and forgiving one another, says Paul in the letter to the Colossians, the second reading. Luke's gospel shows us the real joy and challenges of a family. The purification for Mary was rendered unclean by childbirth, Leviticus chapter 12. The Lord dictated that women present herself with an offering to be made clean again. Another law said that the firstborn male for every human or animal family should be dedicated to the Lord. In response, Mary, Joseph, Jesus made their way to the temple at the designated time. They were met with Simeon, who saw Jesus praised God for allowing him to see the salvation of Israel before his death. Simeon's words echoed those of Isaiah, who calls God's servant the light of the nations, Isaiah 42:6 and Isaiah 49:6. On a darker note, Simeon also explains to Mary the opposition Jesus will face from many people and the suffering she will endure as she watches this happen. Simeon wasn't the only one to see Jesus. The prophet Anna, who never left the temple, proclaimed the redemption of Jerusalem to all who would listen to her. In the Old Testament, it was a prophet's job to point out where God was present and working his will in the world. Anna did exactly that when she saw Jesus. When Luke tells us that God's favor was upon Jesus, we remember it was also on his mother at the Annunciation. Being family isn't always easy. We're all called to love and forgive even when we don't feel like that. We experience joy when someone accepts us as we are. Perhaps we get irritated or even angry when someone challenges us to be better. The wonder of Christmas is that Christ entered our weakness and made it holy simply by doing so. Through him, we learn how to become family. Mary and Joseph, the many disciples that followed Jesus, and the millions who have joined Christianity since have given witness to the possibility that we can be one family in God. As we celebrate the Holy Family, let's learn from Jesus, Mary, Joseph family, the patient, expectant, and openness to God. Let our prayer, our presence, our love share and nurture our families. Where 2 or 3 gathered in my name, I am there in the midst.